Think about how you started your day today. You probably woke up, dragged yourself out of bed, and walked over to your closet to pick out a shirt and some pants. Getting dressed is just such an ingrained, mundane daily habit that we literally don't give it a second thought. But if we rewind the clock far enough, this simple act of putting on clothes wasn't a daily routine at all. Actually, it was the greatest prehistoric mystery on Earth. At some specific point in our deep history, a single individual made the conscious, deliberate choice to put something over their bare skin. So today in this explainer, we're going to completely unravel that fascinating historical mystery.
Okay, let's dive into this. To really grasp the gravity of this question, I want you to imagine our completely vulnerable, bare-skinned stickman protagonist dropped right into the middle of a freezing, unforgiving prehistoric landscape. Now, we don't have a specific name or, a clear photograph of who this exact first person was, obviously, but what we do have is a timeline of human evolution and climate shifts that points to a very specific and honestly very desperate moment in time when dressing up wasn't about style at all. It was 100% about survival.
So looking at the evolutionary timeline, it really sets up the ultimate prehistoric conflict. Going back about 3 million years ago, our early ancestor Australopithecus was fully covered in natural hair. They had this built-in fur coat, so they were perfectly fine. Fast forward to about 1 million years ago with Homo erectus, and, things have changed. We're walking upright, we're sweating to cool down while running, and as a result, we've lost most of our thick body hair. We officially became the naked ape. But here is the massive problem. Jump to about 170,000 years ago, and we hit a severe global cooling period, an actual ice age. So our ancestors were losing their natural body hair exactly when the global climate started to violently cool down. Talk about terrible timing.
And that brings us to what we can officially call the naked, shivering problem. Just imagine the physical struggle here. You're out on the plains, the wind is howling, the frost is settling in, and you literally have zero protection against the harsh elements. Our early ancestors were incredibly vulnerable. They didn't have sharp claws or thick blubber like other animals did. So without their natural fur, a sudden drop in temperature wasn't just, mildly uncomfortable. It was a devastating, immediate threat. Every single day was an absolute battle against the cold.
So this brings up the ultimate test for our early stickman protagonist. How do you survive when nature strips away your natural coat? You have to remember, you can't just evolve thick fur back overnight. Evolution takes hundreds of thousands of years. But the frostbite? Yeah, that's happening right now. This shivering phase was a literal life or death trial. Our ancestors either had to figure out a completely new way to stay warm, or they were going to freeze into extinction. It was a puzzle that demanded immediate, totally out-of-the-box thinking.
You can almost picture the visual comedy of their early wardrobe failures, right? On one hand, you have flimsy leaves. Just imagine trying to strategically place a giant palm frond or some woven grass over yourself, only for a strong gust of wind to blow the whole shebang right away. Leaves dry out, they tear, and they certainly don't trap body heat. But on the other hand, you have animal skins. Thick, durable, and incredibly warm. Now, our ancestors were already hunting these animals for food, sure, but looking at a leftover pelt and suddenly realizing it could be a wearable winter coat, that was a massive, game-changing leap.
Let's walk through that cognitive process because it is just brilliant. Step 1, they hunt the animal for sustenance. Step 2, they're standing there shivering, but they notice the thick fur on the animal they just brought down is incredibly warm to the touch. Step 3, they put 2 and 2 together and they drape that hide right over their own shoulders. And this brilliantly illustrates a monumental leap in prehistoric logic. They weren't just reacting to their environment anymore. They were actively designing a solution using the materials right there around them.
So the crucial point here is how we define this early invention. The very first garment was absolutely not high fashion. It wasn't about making a statement on a prehistoric runway or showing off some new seasonal look to the tribe. It was pure survival engineering. It was a critical piece of technology, really no different than a stone axe or a sharpened spear. This was a wearable tool designed specifically to trap heat and keep the human engine running in a freezing world.
I want us to just slow down for a second and really, truly appreciate this moment. The Great Fur Epiphany. Imagine the very first time a shivering, freezing human wrapped a thick, warm animal pelt around themselves and felt that instant relief of trapped body heat. It must have felt like magic. It is truly an awe-inspiring moment in our history. For the very first time ever, a creature realized it could literally borrow another creature's evolutionary advantage. It's the ultimate aha moment that changed absolutely everything for us. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark contrast between a pre-clothing and post-clothing world. Before clothes, humans suffered from extremely high environmental exposure, and that meant their migration was strictly restricted to warmer climates down near the equator. They were basically trapped by the temperature. But by simply adding a layer of animal skin insulation, the entire game changes. Suddenly, the freezing north isn't a death trap anymore, it's just a brand new territory to explore. The invention of clothes completely unlocked human capabilities.
And these new capabilities triggered massive, world-changing ripple effects. First up, we have global migration. Because humans could now carry their very own microclimate around with them, they were able to leave those warm climates and populate the entire globe, conquering ice ages and frozen tundras alike. Next, over thousands of years, these garments evolved from simple survival gear into complex social status markers, which formed the very basis of cultural identity. And finally, it guaranteed our ultimate species survival, because let's face it, without clothes, humanity simply would not have made it out of the cold.
All of this really forces us to ask a profound question. Did clothes make the modern human? Think about how fundamentally different our evolutionary path would be if that first stickman hadn't picked up a pelt. We wouldn't have migrated, we wouldn't have encountered all those different environments that forced us to invent new tools, new shelters, and totally new ways of cooperating with each other. In a very real way, the decision to get dressed was the catalyst for human beings building the complex, globe-spanning societies we live in today.
And that leaves us with this final wonderful thought. The fabric of society literally started with a single piece of fur. So the next time you throw on a jacket to step out into the cold, take a quick second to remember that brilliant, shivering ancestor from 170,000 years ago. Their desperate moment of prehistoric ingenuity didn't just keep them warm for one night, it sparked the spread of humanity across the entire planet. Which kind of makes you wonder, what other simple, everyday habits do you think secretly shaped the entire course of human history? Definitely something to think about.